Everybody. So today's video is going to focus on the ideas of culture and cultural competency. And the reason why I want to talk about these ideas is because recently I had the opportunity to be nominated by Western to be a part of something called the Killam Fellowship. The Killam Fellowship is an academic exchange program that connects students between Canada and the United States, and its goal is to further Canadian-American relations through education. This is an amazing opportunity that I'm so excited to be a part of. Now, I haven't found out yet if I'll actually get to be a part of the exchange, but I am very excited to be nominated by Western and very thankful for the nomination. So hopefully everything goes through. And in honor of that, and in kind of excitement for finding out about that, because it's going to be soon, I wanted to talk about those concepts today as part of a personal reflection kind of thing. So here we go, and we're going to start talking about what is culture and cultural competency. So if we look at the articles that we were provided this week for the idea of culture and cultural competency, there was one article that really stood out to me, and this was by Narian, and it highlights the 6 steps that a person can go through in order to obtain better cultural competency. In that article, Narian defines culture as the beliefs, values, and practices shared by a group that guide thinking and action in a patterned way. Now, Narian in that article cautions that when thinking about a culture, ethnic groups only represent one type of cultural group. This means that in reality, any group, whether they are defined by socioeconomic, geographic, religious, or sexual orientation, represent distinct cultures themselves because they share beliefs, values, and practices that guide their thinking and their acting. Now, if you keep this idea in mind, there was another article that I found by Hanley which describes that cultural competency is the ability to work effectively across cultures in a way that acknowledges and respects the culture of the person or organization being served. This directly aligns with the ideas presented by Narian, because Narian believes that in order for healthcare practitioners to achieve this end, cultural competency, they must endorse a level of care that is sensitive to, responsive to, and compatible with the patient's accultured health beliefs, values, and practices. Now, Narian, if you read through the article more, explains 6 distinct steps which healthcare practitioners can take in order to obtain a higher level of cultural competency. These steps work through ideas like cultivating attitudes associated with excellent transcultural care, developing awareness, obtaining background information, performing a cultural assessment, planning culturally sensitive care using a preserve, accommodate, and restructure framework, and also avoiding defensiveness and learning how to recover from a cultural mistake. But the big question is, how does this relate to how I will experience the various opportunities that I may encounter if I get the opportunity to study abroad in the United States? And I think that the best way to answer this is to kind of dig a little bit deeper into the idea of culture, how cultural opinions are formed, as well as what do I believe constitutes my own culture. So moving forward, I'm going to look at some frameworks of how culture is formed, how opinions are formed, and then I'm going to kind of pick apart the external and internal parts of my own culture. So here goes nothing. In trying to better understand the idea of culture, I stumbled upon a conceptual resource known as the cultural iceberg. This was a concept that was developed by Edward T. Hall in 1976, wherein Hall likened culture to an iceberg. He did this because he believed that culture has 2 main components. The first is a visible portion that floats on the surface. It accounts for about 10% of culture, and he referred to this as external or surface culture. The rest of culture, that remaining 90%, he referred to this as internal or deep culture, and said that it was hidden and sits below the surface. Hall also noted that when someone first enters a new culture, they usually are only interacting with that top 10%, the tip of the iceberg. Sometimes, unfortunately, people make assumptions or develop ideas about another cultural community without really understanding the internal or deep culture that makes up the majority of that culture's values or beliefs. So what exactly is external culture? These would be things like behaviors, traditions, or customs that are explicitly learned, conscious, easily changeable, and referenced through objective knowledge. Then what forms internal culture would be things like core values, assumptions, perceptions, attitudes, and priorities that are implicitly learned, unconscious, difficult to change, and referenced through subjective knowledge. Now, to kind of give a couple examples, I would say that in my life, an example of external culture would be that I have food preferences. I like pizza, I like chicken, I like quinoa. I choose to dress in a certain way. I'd say that I have a preppy style. I'm into pop music. I speak English, and I have certain dance moves that I like. Then if I were to refer to some examples of internal or deep culture in my life, I'd say that my religious beliefs are Catholic. I observe authority and I respect it. I feel like police officers hold a sense of authority for me. I'd say that I value leadership. I think that justice is something that we should strive for and uphold. I believe that men and women have equal rights, and I believe in equality. I also feel that if you put good things out into the world, good things will come back to you. And I also believe that when I hug somebody, this is a sign of affection or friendship. So now that we've had a chance to pick apart the idea of culture and see what constitutes it, I want to move forward and look at how an opinion is formed and how this may relate to cultural competency. So in doing the research for this subject area, I stumbled across a theoretical tool known as the ladder of inference. This relates to how we experience the world and form beliefs and opinions about the people and events occurring in the world around us. This tool was developed by Harvard business professor Chris Argyris. The ladder of inference is represented by a set of 6 rungs on a metaphorical ladder, which we climb to get from what we see to what we believe and what we do about it. This is important to culture and cultural competency because we often don't realize the way social norms affect our attitudes towards certain groups or how quickly we form opinions about people with little to no information. So here's how the ladder works. The first rung is observable data, and it represents what we take in. It's a snapshot of the world around us. The second is selected data. This is a filtering process where we take the mass amounts of observable data that we take in, and we refine it. This gives us a point of focus. We move on to the next rung then, which is assumptions. This is where we add meaning to what we have seen. If we step a little higher on the ladder, we get to the next rung, which is conclusions. This is where we begin making inferences about a given situation. Now, if what we happen to observe, what we concluded several times, this can lead to the next rung of the ladder, which is beliefs. This rung is where we start to think and form opinions. Now these opinions, if strong enough, may lead us to climb to the final rung, which is action. Unfortunately, there is a reflexive loop that is built into the ladder which may prove problematic when developing a better understanding of someone's culture. This loop exists between beliefs and selected data. Beliefs will lead us to make choices about which data we select, and oftentimes we will select data that proves our theory and ignore the data that does not, regardless of the validity of the theory that we've created. For example, if you believe that someone is untrustworthy, you will select data that proves it to you and ignore the data that does not. Now, to avoid snap judgments and to improve cultural competency, it is suggested that we should deconstruct our ideas down the ladder. The first step is to question our assumptions and conclusions. What else could be going on? What data did I select? What data did I ignore? Then the second is to seek contrary data. What factors am I not considering? Do I have the data to draw these conclusions? Are there other conclusions that I could draw? Ultimately, we want to avoid taking actions which are based solely on our own assumptions. Now moving forward, I want to kind of break apart what I believe is my culture. So now that I've taken the time to unpack the ideas of culture and how we form opinions, I want to take a more critical look at my own culture and see what constitutes my external and internal culture, what it means to be Canadian, and what my educational culture is like here at Western. So to do that, I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey, and we're going to go through a day in the life of me as a student, and as I go along, I'm going to pose questions and give my answers. So I hope you guys enjoy the ride, and here we go. So the first question is, what does it mean to be Canadian? Now, for me, this means being accepting, peaceful, and proud. It also means having to brave variable weather conditions like the crazy winter we just faced. It is the idea that we go to bed peacefully at night and don't worry that we'll wake up to find war, famine, or destruction. It also means that we are multicultural and diverse, a cultural mosaic where everyone is allowed to have a voice. It also means democracy. It means hockey. And it also means pride. Where are my grandparents from? My grandparents are of European descent. One side is from Belgium and the other from France. I definitely think that this plays a role in the staple foods that my family loves to enjoy, how we honor the facet of family, and the strong work ethic that my family endorses. What about my religion? In terms of identifying with a given faith, I would say that I'm Catholic. Though I don't practice my faith in the traditional sense of going to church every Sunday, I do believe that my actions and intentions as a person reflect the core values of the Catholic Church. I personally believe in the idea of karma, and that it is important to do good for others and to put positivity out into the world. Also, I believe that everyone is unique and has value. So let's move on to food. What do I eat? What is something that I like? From the outside looking in, I would say that a lot of people probably think that Canadians all love Tim Hortons and maple syrup. Now, I'm not saying that I don't love a Timmy's chocolate chip muffin every now and again, but I ascribe to these things in moderation. Nutrition is very important to me, and I believe that taking care of my body is paramount. I work hard to eat well and live a healthy, balanced lifestyle. I love to cook and really enjoy eating spinach, quinoa, salmon, and chicken. Now, as a broad question, why do I think I do the things that I do or enjoy the things that I love? Now, as a health sciences student at Western, I am often motivated to take part in things that enhance my sense of well-being in varied ways. I take part in many extracurriculars like student council or learning it together because I love being busy and giving back to my Western community. I am always open to meeting new people, and being part of these groups has made it really easy for me to make new friends and feel at home here at Western. Further, I really enjoy doing hot yoga. This experience provides me with a range of benefits. It keeps me active, it opens me up to a new community, and it gives me the opportunity to take some much needed time for myself to just relax. Now, another concept that a friend of mine brought up to me that I found really interesting was that she said that Canadians, like a little intricacy that we have, is that we talk about the weather as small talk. And I didn't really think about it, but ever since she pointed this out, I've noticed when I do it, and it makes me smile because it does make me feel like this rich sense of being uniquely Canadian. So now that I've kind of reflected a little bit on what it means for me to be me or to be Canadian or to understand my culture, I want to move forward and talk about how my life is going to change when I get the opportunity to go abroad to study in the United States, and what I'm looking forward to and what I hope to take from the experience. So to round out this video, I kind of want to talk about an experience that I had this week and how it relates to my goals and objectives going into this studying abroad experience, and how it relates to the idea of culture and cultural competency. So this past week, while attending an exchange information session, I had the opportunity to see a very powerful TED Talks featuring Nigerian author Chimamanda Adichie. And in the video, Adichie explains what she refers to as the danger of a single story. Now, when she opens, she talks about the British and American storybooks that she read as a child, and how these stories shaped her imagination. Now, it wasn't until she stumbled upon books by African authors that she realized what was happening. As she states, if we hear or read stories about a part of the world, we tend to perceive that part of the world as those stories describe those places. Those stories we receive make us feel a certain emotion, like emotions like pity, toward these people and these places. So as the presentation unfolds, Adichie explains further the idea of a single story and how it relates back to our cultural perceptions. Now she urges the audience to reflect on their assumptions about other cultures and to realize that the media has a way of warping our understanding of this topic. She says, show people as one thing and one thing only over and over again, and that is what they become. That is the consequence of a single story about a person, a place, or an issue. A single story also robs people of their dignity and emphasizes how different people are. So by engaging with all the stories of a person, a place, or an issue, we actually avoid that trap of a single story. So really the big question is, what will I take from this message, and how will I apply it to my experiences that I may encounter while studying abroad in the United States. So because I know that I'm going to carry this message that she presented with me through my studies, and I know that I will hold myself personally accountable for increasing my cultural competency, I kind of set some hopes for my experience while studying in the States. So the first is that though at the surface America may seem very similar to Canada, I am excited to discover the unique features and idiosyncrasies that exist in the given area wherever I get the chance to study. Similarly, I'm looking forward to the chance to communicate with people of another culture in a way that earns their respect and their trust. Further, I'm super excited to just build my own personal capacity to adjust to a new context. I mean, this is a big step for me, and I hope that in general, I find a sense of ease in my host culture. And finally, on kind of like an exciting um, exploration kind of idea, um, I want to take full advantage of Killam's mobility grant and take the opportunity to expand my education outside the classroom and explore those things that are uniquely American. So I'm looking forward to going to Fenway Park, the American Museum of Natural History, Times Square, Broadway, and the United Nations in New York. So I hope that this video kind of put all those ideas into perspective for you. You understand a little bit more about culture, cultural competency, how our opinions are formed, and how these can be beneficial or detrimental to our understanding of another culture. And I hope that this video, you know, uh, helps me to kind of start that reflexive process so that when I do indeed get the chance to go abroad, I can better understand and get the most out of my experience when I'm there. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.